Take 8 people, all of them born in England, all of them white, all of them convinced they're 100% English. A Prime Minister's daughter, a stand-up comic.
I was born in England. My parents were English, my grandparents were English, and their parents were English, and it goes back and back and back. So I am English through and through.
A trainee soldier, a country lady.
I think we have to be flaxen haired to be English, don't you?
A tabloid journalist, a woman who works in the fishing industry.
I don't put British, I don't put UK, I put English.
Convince each of them to give us a sample of their DNA and submit it to a series of state-of-the-art tests that reveal where in the world they really come from. Some of them will be in for a shock.
Wow. Really?
When they find out just how English they really are.
Imagine if you were sitting there and you was a racist. This would just kill you, wouldn't it? You'd have no chance.
I am Andrew Graham Dixon, and I am going to meet a group of people who are convinced they're English through and through. The first is a country lady who lives in Kent, the Garden of England.
Who is it?
Hello, it's Andrew Graham Dixon.
Hello, Andrew.
An Englishwoman's home is her castle.
Come in, come in.
How do you do? Carol Manley and her husband Dennis are restoring their 15th century English manor house.
As you see, we're still in the throes of getting things finished after 37 years.
You've only been here 37 years?
Only 37 years, yeah. It's a life experience, really. You see, the thing is...
Carol even makes her own traditional English wattle and daub.
This is my proper plaster for external. That's got French lime in it, French lime in it. Whatever you say about the French, they're brilliant when it comes to their lime.
Their wine's not bad either. And what do you feel it is that you're restoring? Just a house?
Well, I'm
actually
restoring a bit of England, England's heritage.
Yeah.
Because I think England is taking such a drubbing.
So it's almost that your house is also a kind of English heritage museum.
Oh yes, I'm a museum piece as well. I live in the medieval period. Everything that came after and that's in front of us, to me, is a complete disaster. I mean, I see no hope at all.
As a child, Carol lived in London, where her father ran an off-licence.
Where's that then?
That's King's Crescent.
Is that in
Finsbury Park.
Oh, Finsbury Park,
Finsbury Park.
right.
I lived there till 1960.
Right.
But you see, people were so much nicer then. I mean, with due respects, I'm not saying that immigrants are bad people, because they're not. A lot of them are very good people. My father used to say a lot of them, better citizens than our own. But the difficulty is their culture. Everybody has a different way of going on, you see, and to mix them all up is bound to cause trouble. I mean, now, if I barged into your house and started rearranging you wouldn't like it, would you? And I'm afraid that's what's happening. You see, they don't like our police. They don't like this, they don't like that. Political correctness mustn't say wog. Why not? I mean, I don't mind somebody calling me a golly white wog. I don't mind at all. What's wrong with these people? I'm not saying that a few of these people are not good for the country. But when you get deluged with them, I mean, London now, people tell me, is fast becoming completely alien to the English people, as we were.
Don't you think your Angles in the days of the Norman invasion would have said, "Oh, it's terrible, you know, it used just to be Angles living here, and now there are all these Normans and they're all speaking French."
Yeah,
isn't
but
it part of English history to be invaded?
Normans weren't French. They were men from the north.
They weren't French.
Norsemen, you see. And mainly English peoples are Northern European peoples. We are of a similar ethnicity and culture.
Well, we did get invaded by the Romans. They're not Northern European.
No, but they're not... you couldn't say they're Iranians, could you?
Like everyone I will meet, Carol has agreed to provide a swab of her DNA.
What makes one English as a person? Does your mum have to be English? Does your father have to be English? In your opinion, for you to be English?
Oh, I suppose so, yes.
What
They
if
might be Irish.
They could be Irish. That would be all right. That'd be fine.
Well, you see, there again, it's a similar culture, isn't it, really? I mean, similar ethnicity.
And what about if somebody was half French?
Half French? Oh, I wouldn't tolerate that.
My wife's half French.
Really?
But
yeah, I'm only joking there, really.
Because some people think that unless you're English through and through by the blood, you don't really have the right to campaign for Englishness and to call yourself an Englishman or an Englishwoman. How do you feel about that?
I think we have to be flaxen-haired to be English, don't you?
Flaxen-haired?
Flaxen-haired.
That sounds a bit Germanic to me.
No. But I mean, look at my husband. He's got blue eyes, pale blue eyes. He used to have fair hair, and all the rest of it. He's very Nordic, isn't he? Really? Northern European.
Carol Manley is certain she is 100% English. But until recently, using conventional genealogy, you could only trace your origins back a few hundred years. Yet waves and waves of people have been coming to England for tens of thousands of years from all over the globe. And there are now cutting-edge scientific tests that can unlock the entire story of your past. Inside you, in your DNA, are traces of every one of your ancestors. By using a sophisticated computer program to compare your DNA with a global databank, for the first time, they can reveal the secret of your global origins. The first person whose DNA results I have to deliver is one of England's most famous tabloid journalists.
My England is bubble and squeak and foaming pints of Boddingtons. It's Les Dawson and Barbara Windsor, Max Miller and Page 3.
Gary Bushell is campaigning to have St George's Day made into a national holiday.
My England stretches from Dennis Skinner to Roger Scruton, from Peggy Mount to Becky Bondage. It's Blackpool Beach, Charlie Drake, Charlton Athletic, roast beef. No one likes us, we don't care.
The first of our DNA tests, the global test, breaks down Gary's DNA into 4 ancient population groups: European, East Asian, Sub-Saharan African, and Native American, covering northern Russia through to the Americas. In each test there is a small margin of error. The results have been interpreted for us by a leading geneticist.
Andrew, how are you? Come in.
All right, how are you? First of all, your global DNA, that's all of your DNA.
Okay.
Now that tells us that you have 0% Native American genes,
There's a blow.
0% East Asian, 92% European, and 8% Sub-Saharan African.
Really? 8%? That's quite a lot, isn't it?
That's high. It's about 20 times the average
Really?
for a European.
Yeah.
And what he said is that because there's been very little general population migration from Sub-Saharan Africa to Europe in global terms, it's unlikely that you'd have acquired those genes through a steady agglomeration of DNA building up in your gene pool. And he said it's much more likely that this would have been a singular event, probably in the last 5 generations. On your father's side, there's someone who's Sub-Saharan African.
Really?
Someone who's actually, yeah, so that's his...
Can't see any evidence of it in family pictures or anything like that. I think that's an interesting thing to know, that decades ago, or over a century ago, some young fella be lads come along, a bit darker than everyone else, and got my great-great-grandfather at the duff. It's wonderful, isn't it? imagine if you were sitting there and you was a racist. This would just kill you, wouldn't it? You'd have no chance. Jump off a plane.
8 people who are convinced they're 100% English have agreed to undergo sophisticated DNA tests to reveal their true origins. Some of them are in for a surprise. The next person I'm going to meet threatened to sue if this programme discriminated against the English. Jane Phillips believes that to be English, you must be descended from the Anglo-Saxons.
Jane.
Hi.
Hello.
She agreed to meet me with her colleague Julian Crichton at the site of the Battle of Hastings, where the Anglo-Saxons were defeated by the Normans.
My father-in-law is directly descended, he says, from the first governor of Hastings Castle. So I suppose from your perspective, that would make me part of the enemy.
No, not necessarily.
Jane wanted to lay some flowers on the monument commemorating the death of Harold, the last Anglo-Saxon king.
When you think of 1066, Jane, what does it conjure up for you? What does it mean to you?
Ground zero. It means ethnic cleansing on a massive scale. It means the reduction of 90% of the surviving population to the state of slavery, known as serfdom, and it's, you know, the eradication of Englishness from the state apparatus. It took Englishness quite a long time to reappear in the state apparatus. It took about 300 to 400 years.
Jane has set up the only registered charity to represent the English as an ethnic community. I wanted to know how you could become a member.
In order to qualify as a member of the English community as an ethnic group, you know, it's down to the ethnic group itself to say who and who is not a member. That is what the law says. It's not for the state to say who is a member of an ethnic group. It doesn't go around saying...
Are you a member of that ethnic group?
A member of the English ethnic group, yeah.
So as a member of that ethnic group, it's up to you,
It's
partly, to say who is and who isn't a member. And I suppose that's the question I'm asking.
All
you.
ethnic groups do this. This is not this. This is, you know, right across the board. You know.
No, that's not the question. I'm saying who is and who isn't.
Well, you know, the characteristics that bind my section of the English community together are not the same that binds another section. So for me, supporting the English football team is not a fundamental requirement.
What is for you?
To be a member of the English
community, yeah. What would you make the essential requirements?
Being a member of the English community. I mean, it sounds...
No, I'm saying, where does it all end?
I was still confused as to who qualified as a member of Jane's English community.
We are very clear about who we're talking about. We're not talking about all the people of England. We're talking about the English people to whom this site is almost hallowed ground. You know, with the greatest respect, somebody who arrives from abroad is not going to feel emotively about this site. It's just another bunch of stones. But for us, it's a part of our history, it's part of our tradition, and it symbolises much more likely that we are ethnically English.
Jane didn't want to go into any detail about her own family history, but she did agree to let us test her DNA.
I understand the significance of DNA for membership and of an ethnic group, because an ethnic group is a subgroup of a racial group. But for me, it's not going to... I'm not going to fall off my trolley if you tell me I've got no Northern European blood in me, or I've got no Anglo-Saxon blood in me.
According to recent government statistics, there are 25 million white people living in England who describe themselves as English rather than British. The next person to provide a sample of their DNA works in one of England's oldest industries, 250 miles north of Hastings, in Grimsby.
If somebody asks you, where are you from, do you say, I'm English or I'm British?
I say I'm English. In fact, if I'm completing forms where it says nationality, I put English. I don't put British, I don't put UK, I put English.
If you were trying to define whether someone's English or not, you know, what criteria would you apply to them?
To be truly English, I would say you've got to be able to trace your ancestry back in England, 100% in England, well, for at least 1,000 years, I think, so,
really?
You know.
Nicola wanted to show me Grimsby's fish market. She told me how the English fishing industry had been hit hard by foreign fishermen.
When I started down here, the firm I worked for had over 40 vessels, and you know, the firm I'm working for now's got 11 or 12, and they're about, you know, the last, you know, some of the last few vessels indigenous to Grimsby.
At 10, at 50, at 220, at 5.
It's not cod that's the endangered species in England, it's the fishermen.
Nicola feels the English people are under threat too.
I just feel that we are rapidly becoming the ethnic minority in our own country. We're getting more and more restricted to what we are able to do. The people that's come into this country, either legally or illegally, now seem to have such a dominant voice with people in authority that what they say goes.
Take the example of Ian Wright, very patriotically English. He's played for England and he's passionately supporting the England football team. He considers himself as English could be, and, you know, why shouldn't he?
It just points to the fact if somebody like him can feel so English and be so passionate about being English, it makes me even more shamefaced that others of white skin, for example, can't feel the same way that somebody like him can. And I would say, yeah, well done, Wrighty, you know, good man, good on you.
When I first visited Carol Manley in Kent, I was astonished to discover she hadn't been to London since 1960. So I have persuaded her to go with me on a search for her family's roots in Finsbury Park.
Amazing, look at all this African
Number of people milling around.
Yes. You see, if they were white, you wouldn't notice so much. It's merely their colour emphasises their difference.
Carol's 1960s London has almost completely disappeared.
We're going this way, Dennis.
That's where the old Astoria cinema was. They turned it into a mosque. Oh dear. How terrible. It was a lovely cinema.
As we got closer to Carol's childhood home, she was in for a bigger surprise.
Oh, they've changed the shop front entirely. Called it China Garden. Look at this, the whole shop front's gone. It's absolutely disastrous. Oh, and they've got flats up there now.
So this was the off-licence where you were brought up?
Yes. Look at this hideous colour they've painted it. Mrs. Mack used to live there. Oh, my God. Oh, the old man would have a fit. All that lovely woodwork's gone. Oh, you're not... What are you going to do when you go in?
Yeah, come on.
What are you going to do? Don't push me in first.
Oh, just say
You
hello.
go in. Now, what have you got? Something nice to drink, have you? And nothing in the way of tea? Tea?
China tea, no English tea.
China tea, yeah. Green China tea, that's what
Just
we
one
like.
tea.
With the real McCoy, we don't want tea bags or anything.
We do good Chinese food. Yeah.
Dear, are we stopping? Thank you. Oh,
Spring roll.
much. Oh, brilliant.
Have you had a spring roll?
No.
You've never had a spring
never
roll?
had one in my life. No. No, I haven't.
Have a go.
Don't put weight on, will you?
I can't believe that you've never had a spring roll.
No, not this sort of spring roll, no. Not in the culinary.
So what do you think of this taste of multicultural England?
I don't like the change of ways of going on, I suppose, that's what you can say. That's the problem. It's like if you come to my house and move my things, I get cross, you see.
And the country's just a bigger version of that.
That's right, yes. My country's my wider house.
Some more test results have just arrived, so I'm back in Grimsby to present them to Nicola Hale. Nicola is hoping her results will prove all of her family have lived in England for at least 1,000 years.
Well, you may find that you've got a little surprise in the on the European breakdown. In fact, it's pretty unusual, your European breakdown.
The second of our DNA tests, the Euro test, provides a more detailed breakdown of each person's European DNA into 4 more population groups: Northern European, Southeastern European, Middle Eastern, and South Asian.
You have 5% South Asian, 15% Middle Eastern, 39% Northern European, and 41% Southeastern European.
Wow. That'll probably answer why I'm always fairly dark-skinned then.
Well, it might well do.
Every time I go on holiday, I have trouble getting back in the country because I go so dark. Good grief.
Our geneticist said this is a way different profile from the average in our sample. He said that Nicola's genetic profile from the Euro DNA test suggests the absolutely characteristic profile of someone very much from Southeast Europe, from Italy, from the Balkans, from Greece, or even perhaps Turkey.
Well, I've been on holiday to Turkey quite a few times. I always wondered why I felt at home. Perhaps now I know.
When we spoke before, I think you said we were talking about what would be quintessentially English, and I think you said going back 1,000 years with everybody in your family coming back from England. Mm-hmm. Now, has this changed your opinion about that in any sense?
No. I think that is still a pretty good marker. I think it's a sliding scale, really. I think the further back in history you can prove your Englishness, I think it would make you feel more English.
It's the 23rd of April, the day of England's patron saint, St. George. So far, our DNA tests have revealed some surprising results. And now, I'm on my way to Purfleet in Essex, to the Circus Tavern. Tonight, they're putting on a Festival of England. One of the acts is self-styled English comedian Danny Blue. For the last 25 years, he's been performing the balloon dance.
So when you think of England, what is it that comes into your mind? What pictures? What's English that you really value?
Do you know what England is to me?
Yeah.
Sunday night at 8:30 when I look at Heartbeat and they go up there and you see the old shop on the green there, all them old English cars, and just England and the country. That to me is England.
When you say you're English through and through, what do you mean by that? I mean, what?
Well, I was born in England. Obviously, I was born in English. My parents were English, my grandparents were English, and their parents are English, and it goes back and back and back. So I am English through and through. And if a black couple come over here and they live here for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, it doesn't matter how long they live here, and even if they have English citizenship, they will never be English because they was born in another country. And the children that come from that marriage or from that unity, whatever, although they're born in England, the blood roots are they're not true English heritage.
Does that mean that if you're going to take that measure, how many generations do you have to go back to count yourself English?
Let's just get one thing straight. If you're Greek or Italians or Germans or whatever part of the world you're from, if your parents are born in that country and they're both German or both Italian or wherever they come from, that is your bloodstrain, and I'm afraid that, in my eyes, that you're not true English. You will be Anglo-German or Anglo-Italian, Anglo-American, Anglo-Jamaican or whatever, English to me is people that are white English people that have been, that the parents go back, and it's like a pedigree.
So how many generations do you have to go back to be...
12 generations ago. Anything past 12 generations I'll accept as being English.
My mum's maiden name is de Villars, and probably at sometime in the 18th century, her family came over fleeing from France.
So you're not true English, are you?
Am I not?
No. No, not 100% English.
So what about Ian Wright? I mean, he's played for England. He's worn the England shirt. He's obviously patriotically English. Do you think he doesn't have the right to call himself English?
I don't think he's English. He's born. I don't know. He obviously must have been born here. I don't know whether he was born here. I don't know whether he actually.
I'm pretty sure he was.
Okay, if he was born here, but an English person doesn't have black skin.
If he was here now, what would you say to him? Would you?
I'd argue with him, tell him he's not English.
You would?
I'd argue with him and say you're not English.
What do you think he'd say back?
He'd probably call me racialist. I don't know what he'd call me, but I don't think he's English.
So even sort of 200 years from now, Ian Wright's great-great-great-grandchildren, as far as you're concerned, they couldn't be English?
No. No, because I think that in 100, 200 years' time, and if they'd done a DNA genetic test on him, they would go back and say, oh, actually, you're not English, your parents were born so-and-so.
So what about your DNA test that we've done on you?
I'm pretty sure that's going to come back 100% English.
The next set of DNA test results are now in, so I'm on my way to Kent to break the news to Carol Manley. Carol is hoping her origins will be as English as her house. In your global DNA, you are 80% European, 11% Native American.
Native American, does that mean Red Indian or something?
The Red Indians are included in that group. And 9% East Asian.
East Asian, not Iraq. Or Iran.
0% Sub-Saharan African.
0%?
0%
Thank God for that. Thank God for that.
Why do you say that?
Well, that was what I feared most. You were going to say I was a Hottentot from somewhere or other.
Carol's Euro DNA test results just reinforced our expert's interpretation. What this suggested to our genetic scientist when he was interpreting the results was that there's an overwhelmingly strong probability that a very significant part of your ancestry comes from somewhere in the East. And he particularly picked out Mongolia.
Really? No wonder I love Chinese things.
and northern China.
Oh, there you are, you see.
And he said that was very significant.
Oh dear, yes. Yes, how fascinating. I can't speak Chinese.
I mean, he said it was very striking, but he also said that there were potential good historical explanations for it.
Yes, such as?
When you think of the most famous population movements from that part of the world, the sort of movements which might have involved your far ancestors and where they might have originally come from, he mentioned the name of Genghis Khan.
Oh, that sounds possible. Temperamentally.
How do you feel about that, Dennis?
Operatum, that's my motto.
Does that strike a chord with you at all?
Yes, I think it does. You know, I'd take on anybody.
So it doesn't surprise you that you might have the genes of an invading horde somewhere seething in your blood.
I'm delighted. I think it's lovely. Thanks a lot.
If Carol Manley could be related to Genghis Khan, I wondered about another great leader, our most famous living ex-Prime Minister.
The lady's not for turning.
What would her DNA reveal about her origins? What do you think of this picture?
Don't you think that's a bit black magic, isn't it?
a bit black magic.
You know, chocolate boxy.
It's painted in the style of postcards of poodles and things. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, well, you put it that way. I'll stick with black magic.
Black magic.
Lady Thatcher's daughter Carol has agreed to provide a DNA sample. In the global DNA test, she comes out as 100% European.
So I'm average, is what you're saying?
Well,
I think I better regard this as a relief, actually.
on your European DNA, and this is actually quite unusual in terms of our samples that I've read out before, 0% South Asian, 0% Southeastern European, 76% Northern European, and 24% Middle Eastern. Which is quite unusual. Does that surprise you?
Where are you defining the Middle East? As in Eastern Mediterranean and...
By the Middle East, we mean Saudi Arabia, Iraq, possibly parts of Iran, Syria, Jordan, all the way through to North Africa. So we include Egypt, Algeria, Tunisia, and Libya. Does that make any sense to...
No, well, what you're saying is, do I know if any of my great or great-great-grandparents had any connections or came from there? I haven't got a clue. I shall do what research I can in order to... I'm now very curious.
What do you think your family might make of this when you turn around and ask them? Do you think they'll be surprised themselves?
Well, my brother did once compete in a motor rally across the Sahara Desert and rather famously got lost, so I think he'd be astonished to know that he ought to have done better.
My journey to uncover the true origins of the English has taken me from a country house in Kent to a fish market in Grimsby. Now I'm in a car park in a wood just south of Corby in Leicestershire.
What are we doing today exactly?
Shooting you.
Shooting me.
That's pretty much it.
Good, okay. Well, at least I know where you're coming from.
I'm here to meet 18-year-old Damon Barks. He is about to join the army.
But sort of don't go Rambo, because that looks really, really capped.
Don't go Rambo?
Oh.
I'm not sure I could go Rambo, even if I tried. Here's on my own.
While he awaits his call-up, he's putting in some training of his own, and has asked me to join him for a simulated war game.
How English do you feel yourself?
I feel very English. My parents feel English, my grandparents feel English, my mates feel English. I feel very English.
Damon believes that the British Army is the best in the world because of the fighting qualities of the English soldier.
Can you give me a list of the qualities that an English soldier has?
Testicles. It stands for teamwork, enthusiasm, stamina, tenacity, initiative, courage, loyalty, excellence, and a sense of humour.
You have to go on to automatic, don't you? I see, I can't even make gun work.
Damon is worried that England's best days are past.
50 years ago, people knew you were English. It was to some degree a mark of respect. But now, I mean, I don't know whether it's politics or whether it's just the natural course of things. The English are not as respected as they were. I'd like to bring something back to Englishness rather than the mess that it's become.
Do you think there's a danger that as England becomes more multicultural, that certain core English values could potentially be drowned out, or...
Well, I think there's a lot of effort to trying to do that at the minute. I think it's this fear of offending people that's undermining the basis. It's saying, be English by all means, but be careful in how you're English, which I don't think is on. We've always had a lot of immigration though, but before it wasn't making such a large effect on the country, and the people come over here now and they want things just for being here. I don't think it's right that people should be able to walk in and through the door, as it were, and say, right, I'm here, where can I get me money?
So for you, if you want to be English, if you want to count yourself English, you've got to make a contribution.
Yeah.
You've got to be part of
society. You need to put something in if you want to get something out. It's the same with anything.
I'm on my way back south to deliver some more results. To Jane Phillips, the lawyer campaigning to have the English accepted as an ethnic group. Our genetics expert has told me that her Eurotest results are quite unusual.
Because what he says is that your Euro DNA breakdown is the most interesting of all of our samples.
Oh, that's so sweet of him, isn't it?
What makes it really distinctive is the fact that it is very evenly spread. It's the most evenly spread. You have by far the lowest North European score of all of the people that we tested. It's less than half of what might be expected from a typical North European.
Right.
And you also have by far and away the biggest Middle Eastern score
right.
of all those we tested, 4 times the average. And he says it's so unusual, it really is very tricky to analyse.
Okay.
One explanation, he says, is that you should look for your ancestry, and I mean, he says, your relatively recent ancestry, in the Ukraine, in southern Russia, or the Caucasus, such as Georgia or Armenia.
Okay. That would, I think, again, that's not going to come from the English side, that's going to come from the bit of me that comes from Northern Europe.
Another possible explanation is that Jane could have some ancestors who were Romany Gypsy.
Really? Well, that should surprise the family. Yeah, not that I know them. I mean,
and he said if he did a blind tasting of your DNA without knowing anything about you, he would say that this is absolutely the typical DNA
of a Romany
Gypsy.
Well, I'm sure the Romany Gypsies aren't prepared to accept me as a member of their group because I can't trace any of my ancestors back to them.
When we first met, we met at Battle, and you talked about your very strong sense of affinity with the pre-1066 Anglo-Saxons, and you talked about our ground zero.
Yeah.
Does your own DNA revelation or surprise, does it make you feel any less strong an affinity with that group of Anglo-Saxon people?
No, again, I'm a classic example of integrational politics here, because first of all, not all my DNA is Romany Gypsy. I will definitely have Northern European and ancestry, and I've certainly got English ancestry. It's just more mixed than most.
Regardless of your politics, as it were, and your mission, don't you think it's quite romantic to have such mixed and interesting DNA?
Probably why I love the song Gypsies, Tramps and Thieves. We hear it from the people. Yeah, I can imagine some probably, because let's face it, I think that the English part of me, and it's only a belief, is incredibly English rural, and so there's a good chance, that they came passing through. If somebody watching this programme would like to ring me up and discuss it from the Romany Gypsy Representative Council, I'd be pleased to hear from them. But the truth of the matter is that I'm not a member of their community.
Four days after receiving her results, Jane Phillips threatened us with legal action, claiming the DNA tests were unreliable and her results were inaccurate. My journey round England is almost over, and so far, DNA testing has revealed that however English you think you are, you could have ancestors originating from as far afield as Turkey, Africa, and even China. I am now going to meet a man who, for the last 30 years, has been an arch opponent of multicultural Britain.
Multiculturalism is a divisive force. One can't uphold two sets of ethics or be loyal to two nations.
One Labour MP has asked the Home Secretary to prosecute Mr Tebbit for inciting racial hatred.
Former Conservative Party chairman, Lord Tebbit, agreed to submit a sample of his DNA for testing.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for coming.
In the global DNA test, he came out as 100% European.
About which there's not much to say, other than that you are a typical European. Now, if we go to your Euro DNA, that comes out at 69% Northern European, 31% Southeastern European, 0% Middle Eastern, and 0% South Asian. And what our chap said is you're, on this test, in many ways, you come out as very standard, very average. Your North European score is bang on our average. Your Southeast European is a third more than the average, whereas your South Asian and Middle Eastern scores are way below the average. And one possible explanation, he added, is that of all our sample, your ancestors did the least travelling and moving about the globe, the least mixing. But you could say that your ancestors did not get on their bikes.
Well, my father only ever went out of Britain to go to France in the 1418 war. And like Willie Whitelaw, he decided he didn't like abroad and stayed at home after that. My mother never even went as far as Scotland.
Our genetic expert added that mixture is good, and yours, while typical in some respects, is very limited, very restricted in his spread. In fact, he actually described your DNA profile as boring.
Before my journey is over, I have 2 more sets of results to deliver. The first set is for Damon Barks, who's joining the army because he wants to restore England's former glory.
Your European results are 59% Northern European, 20% South Asian, 18% Southeastern European, and 3% Middle Eastern. Now again, if I think it's helpful if I interpret that a bit through with the help of our man, and he said this is the typical DNA profile of someone who lives in Russia or the Ukraine. He said he'd never guessed that this was a typical Englishman or North European that he was looking at the DNA.
Awesome. That is surprising. I'm not disappointed or anything. I'm just really, really surprised with that. I mean, look at that. I've got DNA spread from, well, at least a quarter of the globe. So, quite a lot there.
Does it make you look at the globe in a different...
It does. It certainly brings all these places closer together, as it were. No, that they all seem so far away. I mean, even the Ukraine, Belarus, it does look closer now.
Now that you know it's in your,
it's
in your blood.
Yeah. Me, I've always thought myself as English and very little else. But suddenly know that there's a part of you that isn't what you were. And for racists to find out that part of them may be what they've discriminated against for however long. It'd certainly put an edge on it and certainly would throw racists off the game a little, I think. I mean, you might pride yourself on being English as having your family lived here for hundreds of years, but when you have a test done like this, it proves that there's certainly different things there.
When I first met comedian Danny Blue, he told me that to be truly English, you couldn't have black skin. In his DNA tests, Danny came out as one of the least European of everyone I met.
Shall I give you your European DNA breakdown?
Certainly.
10% Middle Eastern, 11% South Asian, 37% Southeastern European, and 42% Northern European.
I'm a bit of a mongrel, aren't I? Not a thoroughbred after all. Oh. That's going to give me something to think about for a few days, that will.
Your results might suggest that you have very strong ancestral links with the Balkans, or even further east, Russia, or Georgia, or Armenia. And he suggests very strongly that if you wanted to find your origins, you'd be looking east.
That's amazing. I'm quite shocked by that. I really am quite shocked to think that...
I remember when we met before,
Mm-hmm.
I think you said to me that I couldn't be English because my mother has a French... I couldn't consider myself English because I didn't go back far enough in your book.
And you asked me how far back you got to go.
Yeah, and I think you said...
For 200 years when I said...
You said 12 generations.
12 generations, that's right, yeah. So, all right. Oh, well, maybe you are English after all then.
Are you prepared to maybe sort of reduce the number of generations a bit from 12?
Yeah. Maybe 2 or 3 generations I would go back and say, if you're 2 or 3 generations, you're English. Or maybe 4. No, maybe 4.
When we met before, I asked you whether Ian Wright had any right to call himself English. Does this change your view at all about that?
Yes, I guess he can call himself English now. I still find it... I still stand by what I say, that if 2 Jamaicans come over here and have a child, or 2 Italians or 2 Germans come over and have children and they're born here, I still say that they're English bred they're English bred, but they're not English. Aren't you? This throws it all out the window now, doesn't it? Because you think, how far back can you go? So I'm afraid I'm going to have to say they're English.
Gordon Ramsay hits the Costa del Sol tomorrow, but it's no holiday. A new series of Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares tomorrow at 9 on 4. Next tonight, King Charles I comes out of exile for a new series identifying the evolution of British royalty, Monarchy by David Starkey.